Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Good. I hope you have read your homework, have done your homework, read the book, read the pages. So I think you prepared for me to ask you questions about last week, right? You are very prepared, right? So, okay. So, who did we talk about? Who was the person we talked about last week beside the Buddha? Unmute all of them, please. Okay, you are all unmute. Oh, P. Oh, you still want to use. Oh, P. Okay, okay. Potalia, right? Okay. So we talk about Potalia, and so Potalia actually said that he has cut off all the affairs, right? Given up all his wealth. So which are the two things that actually he only kept? Clothing. Clothing and?
Well, it's home.
Yeah. Yeah, Nora, F and O, food, right? Clothing and food. Okay. So, and the Buddha said, you think that is, that is really, we don't call that abandonment. So, which is the real abandonment? So the Buddha has actually given Potalia how many metaphors? 7. You know what? In Chinese, this is 8. This is 8, and this is 7. It's so confusing in Chinese, but not of course not without this. Just this is 7, and this is 8. So it's 7, right? 7. Okay. Yeah, seven metaphors. Okay. So how many can you remember? Right off your head. Don't look at your nose. Can you remember all 7? Laurie, you remember all your 7? Yeah. Unmute yourself and tell us all the 7s. Somebody was saying something. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so the hungry dog.
Yeah, hungry dog.
So it was the skeleton that they were talking about.
Yeah.
Likening it to the sensual pleasure. And then it was the bird, the heron, the hawk, or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it was the torch.
The grass torch. Yeah. Going
into the wind.
Into the wind, against the wind.
So it would go back.
Yeah, against the wind. Okay.
Right.
3.
You want me to do okay.
Okay. Who else remember?
The charcoal pit.
The charcoal pit.
Charcoal pit.
Okay. What is the charcoal pit? Okay, Laurie, you continue.
The charcoal pit was the man who he didn't and he didn't want to go,
Struggling, yes, okay.
Right.
What else?
I think the next one was the dream, the parks, the lovely parks
Yep.
and places.
Good.
Right.
That's the fifth one. That's the sixth one.
Right. And then
The fifth one.
I think it was.
The sixth.
Keep going.
Two more.
I think it's the borrowed.
The borrowed
Goods.
goods. Okay.
Right.
Yep.
And then the last one is the fruit.
The fruit trees.
The fruit in the tree.
Yeah, yeah.
Hanging on to the fruit.
Okay.
The tree getting axed down and falling down.
Okay. For the last one, the tree. How many persons are involved in that metaphor? Good. Ah, very well. What did the first one do?
He climbed the tree.
He climbed the tree. Okay. Climbed the tree. What's the second one do? Yes, an X. Well done. Yeah, very good. You see, you can remember, right? If you go home and study it again, you remember all these stories, all these teachings, and I tell you, it could become handy. At times you never know. You never know. It could become handy as a reminder to you. So remember, I should have done this long time ago. 7 metaphors. Okay. So tonight we are going to talk about Magandina. Magandina is actually he was a householder in the Buddha's time, and so there are actually long story before the fever of sensual pleasure in this sutta. But I'm not going to actually tell you the story before this part starts. But anyway, Bhakandiya. So this is of course the Buddha actually gave him these teachings, right? So they were talking about sensual pleasures and everything. So the Buddha told Magandina, he said, well, way before I became enlightened, when I was still a householder, I enjoyed. That is in page 202. He said, I enjoyed so much of the sensual pleasures. I enjoyed the 5 chords of the sensual pleasures, the forms and the sounds and the odors and the flavors and the tactile objects and everything. He said those are all wished and desirable and agreeable and likable and connected with sensual pleasures, sensual desire, and provocative of lust because of lust. That actually, arouse all these. And he said he had 3 palaces, right? And one for the rainy season, and one for the winter, and one for the summer. And you all know that in India there are only 3 seasons. Okay, so he said he lived in the rain palace for the 4 months of the rainy season and enjoying himself with musicians. And none of them are male. So all of the musicians were female. And I did not go down to the lower palace. But anyway, then he did not mention anything about him searching through the truth or him staying in the forest for 6 years. He actually go on right there. He said, on a later occasion, having understood as they really are the origin, the passing away, the gratification, the danger, and the escape in the case of sensual pleasures, I abandoned craving for sensual pleasures. So he actually didn't talk about the whole 6 years when he spent in the forest. He went right into right into the realization that he attained. And actually over there, even though he did not mention, but of course we knew what he has gone through and how he actually attained the enlightenment. He attained the awakening because he was in such a strong, deep state of samadhi or jhana. Okay, so because he said in page 203, he said, and I dwell without thirst. That means I'm not craving for thirst. When you're thirsty, you tend to want to drink, right? So he said, I dwell without thirst, and then with the mind inwardly at peace. So that is on page 203, the first line. With a mind that is inwardly at peace. That means that is in a very, very deep samadhi state, a very, very at peace inwardly. That means there is a strong jhana, but also at peace. That means a very, very high level of equanimity, very balanced mind. So he said, and then he said, I see other people who are not free from lust for sensual pleasures. Then he go on and he go on. And he go on. He said, I do not envy them, nor do I delight therein. So he said, even though I see people who are actually craving for sensual pleasures, burning with the fever of sensual pleasures, indulging themselves in sensual pleasures, but however, I do not envy them. I do not delight in these behaviors. Because why? Magandiya, he said, because I have actually a delight apart from sensual pleasures. A very, very important actually statement there is a delight apart from sensual pleasures, apart from unwholesome states, which surpasses even divine bliss. Okay, so this he said divine bliss. Of course, it means the experience in China. Then this divine bliss, you can say of the whatever the devas is experiencing, or people with deep jhana experiencing. And he said, the delight that I experience is way above this divine bliss. So it's above all these jhana state. Of course, it will be above all this jhana state because he is the Sambuddha. He's totally liberated. And of course, even we are in jhana state, there's nothing compared to the state of Sambuddha, that Nibbana state that he actually has experienced. Right? So he said, because I have abandoned craving for these sensual pleasures, and I have removed all this fever of sensual pleasures, and I dwell without thirst, with the mind inwardly at peace. And there is this delight apart from sensual pleasures, apart from unwholesome states, which surpasses even divine bliss. So then he continued, he said, Agandiya, he said, even a household, he said, even a householder or householder's son who was very rich and affluent and wealthy, and being provided and endowed with all these 5 courts of sensual pleasures, he might enjoy himself with forms, with sounds, with odors, and with flavors and everything. But he said, these are connected with sensual desire and provocative of lust. And having conducted himself well, here, having conducted himself well in the body, speech, and mind, that means he is upkeeping his precepts. He has a very high level of morality, perfection in morality, having conducted himself well in the body, speech, and mind. That means with the body, he doesn't kill, he doesn't steal, he doesn't commit adultery, and speech is doesn't lie, no harsh speech, no slandering, no gossiping. And in the mind, there is no craving, there's no anger, animosity, and there is no delusion, illusion, and no doubt. So that is well conducted himself well in the body, speech, and mind. And on the breakup of the body, we have actually studied this before. If somebody is maintaining a very high level of morality in this lifetime, in the previous chapter, we have studied that, right? The fortunate rebirth in the future is after death, he might be reborn in a good destination or even in a heavenly realm because of such high morality that he has actually abide by in this lifetime. And even if this person really is going to be born in the Deva worlds, in the heavenly world, and he will be surrounded by a group of nymphs. So that is at the paragraph 11, and he's born in this Tavatisma heaven, and surrounded by a group of nymphs in the Nadana grove. And he would enjoy himself, provided and endowed with all the 5 courts of sensual pleasures. You remember, always remember, if in the heavenly world, they are really every minute or every second, they are actually and entertain themselves with sensual pleasures. Unless they are reborn in such a pure abode that they will continue to practice. Otherwise, they will be all blinded by these sensual pleasures. But why would they be reborn in such a place? Why wouldn't they continue to practice? Because in this lifetime, they have abide by those precepts, and also in this lifetime, they have actually fulfilled great meritorious deeds. That means they are very generous. They donate, they support, they serve, and meritorious deeds. So after this death, if the seed of Dharma is latent, of practicing Dharma is latent, then at the time of birth, at the time of death, they will be reborn in heavenly existence because of all the good deeds that they have done in this lifetime. Tremendous good deeds, so they just almost instantly go up there. Okay? So even though one is doing a lot of meritorious deeds, if one vow to practice in the next life, we still need to make sure. It's very difficult to make sure. But that's why we need to strengthen the Dharma seed so often. Keep strengthening them. Hopefully, by the time of death or after death, that Dharma seed just sprout, and so we will follow a path that will lead us to be able to practice Dharma in the next life or next lives. But if the Dharma seeds are very, very weak, then all the other seeds are stronger, right? Like in the field, if you have dandelions if you have sunflowers, if you have tulips, it depends on which seeds are stronger, which seeds are hardier, and then so those strong seeds will take over. They will take over. They will actually overtake that field, and the other seeds, the other flowers might not have a space, or might not have the nutrients, might not have the soil to actually grow, to mature. And that's the same as our mental field, as the human mental field. That's the same. That's why the Buddha kept on telling us is you have to strengthen your seed in Dharma. You have to strengthen your morality. You have to strengthen your wholesome deeds. These all have to go together. Why? Because at the time of birth, it's not up to you to choose. It depends on the seeds. Okay? And also depends on our mind too, whether we are all crazy or confused, or whether we are very, very calm and strong and focused. So, okay, so really, that is really quite tricky at that time, and quite challenging at that time. Okay, so surrounded by this group of nymphs, and then suppose he then saw, and then he was so enjoying himself. Then he says, suppose he saw a householder or a householder's son enjoying himself, provided and endowed with the 5 pleasures. What do you think, Magandhya? What do you think? Would that young diva surrounded by this group of nymphs enjoy himself, provided with these 5 divine sensual pleasures? Do you think that he would envy the householder who are actually enjoying human sensual pleasures? Of course not, because he is enjoying divine sensual pleasures. Why do you want to lower yourself, right? So, for example, if you have actually attained a doctorate degree, and would you envy somebody who has just got a bachelor degree? You say, oh, that's nice. I wish I have a bachelor degree. Oh, no, you won't, right? You will think, oh, I have a doctorate degree. Why do I have to envy people who has or even a high school degree, right? You won't, because you have higher education. So that's the same as these divas. These divas, they have the opportunity to actually have these divine sensual pleasures, so they would not envy these human sensual pleasures, right? And he said, of course not. They won't envy, or they won't be enticed by them, because divine sensual pleasures are more excellent. Okay, so divine sensual pleasures are more excellent. So then the Buddha kept on telling Magandhya, he said, on a later occasion, having understood all these are gratifications, and all these are the dangers, and all these are the escape of sensual pleasures, I determined to abandon them. I removed this fever, and I dwell without thirst, with a mind really inwardly at peace. So that is paragraph 12 on 204. So, inwardly at peace, I see other people who are not free from lust, from sensual pleasures, being devoured by craving for sensual pleasures. So, I think we all have seen this, and we have seen people burning or devoured by craving for sensual pleasures, burning with the fever of sensual pleasures, indulging themselves in sensual pleasures. And the Buddha said, I do not envy them. I do not envy them, because why? Nor do I delight in them, because why? Because Magandiya, he said, because there is a delight apart from sensual pleasures, from unwholesome states, which surpasses even the divine bliss. So he's talking about another state higher than the divine bliss. That is the bliss that actually, I don't think the Buddha would describe his enlightenment as a bliss. If he does, then then it's not emptiness, it's not anatta, right? So I don't think he would describe that as a bliss. But of course, in order for us to understand, he would just say, which surpasses even divine bliss. So we understand from these words that the state that he has attained is way more excelled than this divine bliss. Okay? So he said, since I take delight in that, I do not envy what is inferior, nor do I delight therein. So, since I take delight in that, so in this passage, when he says, since I take delight in that, so would you think that the Buddha is really indulging in this a state that is way above the divine bliss? Because I take delight in this. Is he attaching to that state at all? No, he shouldn't. He shouldn't. Otherwise, what he taught us is wrong, right? What he taught us is not true. But he need to pass the message to us. Is that he doesn't enjoy that divine bliss, because the blissful state that he actually went through is way more than the divine bliss. And he encouraged us that there is way higher state that you can actually reach rather than just divine bliss. Okay, so then Buddha is actually very kind. He is such a compassionate teacher. He's always worried that his students do not understand his teachings thoroughly. So he always gives metaphors, he always gives stories, he always gives similes. And this simile is actually a very, very powerful simile, and actually a very, very famous simile also. And every time I looked at it, I just, just shiver myself. I have read this simile so many times, but every time there's this insight and this understanding and this appreciation for the teachings that he has actually passed down to us. So, and I wish you would actually enjoy this simile too. So this is really the essence, this is the core story of this whole thing about the fever of sensual pleasures. Here, the Buddha actually talked about the simile of a leper. So, I don't know whether you have encountered people who has leprosy. I had. When I was still working in the 80s. And so I've seen the sufferings of lepers, a lot of sufferings, very challenging, both mental and physical. So I think that's why this simile actually strikes me so much every time. Because during the first 5 years of work, I constantly see lepers. I constantly saw lepers in the clinic and in the hospital. So that actually had a very deep imprint in my mind. And so when I started studying the Nikaya, I came across this story. I said, oh, wow! I could really connected, make connections with the patients that I have seen before. Okay, so the first one is a leper with a lot of sores and blisters on his limbs, and then being devoured by worms and scratching the scabs of the open. Yes, sorry, there's a spelling mistake. Wound, W-O-U-N-D, with his nails. I have seen this. I've seen worms in wounds in a leper, and I have picked out those worms myself with a forceps. Yeah, I think that's why I connected with this, and then because it's so itchy, right? And I mean, we all experience itchiness, and when a mosquito sting you, the first thing you will do is scratch, because it's so itchy, right? And because you haven't learned mosquito meditation with me. So when you come to the 7-day meditation, I'll teach you mosquito meditation. It's very simple. You just be mindful, that's all. Okay, but anyway, so it's so itchy, so I tell you, it's way itchier than a mosquito sting. And so starting scratching the scabs, because the scabs, when a wound is healing, a lot of times before it starts healing, is pain. When it starts healing from a scab, from a crust, itchiness starts to set in. Okay, so that is, but it's so difficult to tolerate. So you would just keep on scratching, right? The leper would keep on scratching with his nails, and then cauterizing his body over a burning charcoal pit, because it was so difficult to tolerate, and the heat would give him a moment of release, a moment of relief also from that itchiness. And then his friends saw him like this, and his friends brought in, and relatives and kinsmen brought in a physician to treat him. And in those days, actually, treating lepers is really not an easy thing, huh? Very difficult thing in those days. But with the advance in medicine, it got so much better that leprosy was completely extinct. Is it completely extinct? No. I don't think so, huh? In India, still have lepers, I think, yeah. But only in Hong Kong, and yeah, it's completely gone. Or in the well-developed countries, yeah. So his friends, companions, kinsmen, and relatives brought a physician, a doctor, to go and treat him. And the doctor make medicine, so he took medicine. By means of medicine, he was cured and become well and happy, independent, and become a master of himself and able to go and wherever he likes. So he was cured of leprosy. So this is the first simile, the introduction about this sensual pleasures. So the scratching is sensual pleasures. To relieve that itchiness, to cauterize themselves, okay? It's just like the fever of sensual pleasures, right? So that's his first one, okay? And then really come the content of all these metaphors is, then he might see another leper. That's because in those days lepers are everywhere. It was a very, very common illness at that time. Then he might see another leper with sores and blisters and limbs, who was scratched and who would devoured by worms and cauterize his body over a charcoal pit. Then his friends and companions treat him. Physician would make medicine. Then he got cured. So, and he said, okay. And then the Buddha said, would that man envy that leper for his burning charcoal pit or his use of medicine? So if this first leper actually saw a second leper, treating himself exactly like what he did, would that man envy that leper, the second leper? Or would that man envy the second leper who is using the medicine? Agadinya said, of course no, because why would he envy? Because he doesn't have the illness anymore. And Magadinya said, medicine is only required when there is sickness, when there is illness. So when this second leper doesn't have any illness, he doesn't need to envy. He doesn't need to envy anybody at all. So he would not envy the second leper, right? So it is no need for the medicine. So Makadina said, okay, then the second one was, then the Buddha continued to ask Makandya or Makadina. Then he said, what about this second man? This second man's all cured, okay? And he goes whenever he likes. Then the two strong men would seize him by both arms and drag him towards a burning charcoal pit. What do you think, Magandhya? Would that man twist his body this way and that way? So the second man was cured, okay, with medicine and everything. Cured. And he's well and happy, independent master of himself, able to go where he likes. But there are two strong men who come over and trying to drag him and throw him into the charcoal pit. Would that man twist his body this way and that way? Of course. Magandhya said, yes, of course. Because the fire is indeed very painful to touch. It's hot and scorching. The man wouldn't want to get close to the fire anymore because his illness was completely cured, right? So why would he want to be close to the fire? Why would he want to cauterize himself over the fire? He wouldn't. So when somebody tried to drag him towards the charcoal pit, of course he would struggle to free himself, right? Then the Buddha asked Magandhya, he said, oh, is that right? So you remember who are these two men, right? You remember this, right? Who are these two men? Lux and desire. Yeah, very good. Okay, so then that's the second simile, right? And then the Buddha said, okay. Then the Buddha asked Magandhya, he said, so is it only now that the fire is painful to touch? Hot and scorching. What about before? Was the fire before hot and scorching? Was it painful to touch too? Of course, fire is always hot and scorching, always painful to touch. We are not dumb. We won't put our hand onto the fire, right? Because it's hot, always. So Magandhi said, of course the fire is now painful, and also before it also is hot and painful and scorching. And then he goes on. He said, for when that man was a leper with sores and blisters, the Buddha said, the man with sores and blisters at that time, page 205 is paragraph 16. He said, these people who are not free from lust for sensual pleasures, who are devoured by craving for sensual pleasures, who burn with the fever of sensual pleasures, have faculties that are impaired. Oh, no, at the end of paragraph 15. So his faculties were impaired. So when it was so painful, when it was so itchy, when the leper cauterized himself over the fire, his senses were impaired. That's why he felt that cauterizing is a comfort. What senses are impaired? Unmute yourself and say that again, Johnson.
Judgment.
Judgment. Yeah.
Moral judgment.
Yeah, judgment is impaired.
Yes.
Say that again. Sorry.
I was saying his judgment was because, as you mentioned, the scratching. Anything at the time in his head would have been better than the amount of suffering that he's going through with the scratching. So anything as an alternative would have seemed like a good idea.
Yeah, even a hot charcoal pit, right? Because
yes.
Yeah, because at that time the perceptions is wrong, is distorted, right? Distorted perception, and so he would mistakenly think that cauterization is very soothing, mistakenly. So even a scorching charcoal pit is seen to be comforting, soothing. Okay, so then the Buddha said, so in the past the sensual pleasures are painful to touch. That's paragraph 16. And then it's painful to touch, and in the future the sensual pleasures also will be painful to touch, hot and scorching. So because of all these distorted views, so we think that the charcoal pit is not, it is soothing. The same with us. We think that sensual pleasures are really bringing pleasures to us because we have a distorted view. Especially when we are in the sensual pleasures, when we are indulging in the sensual pleasures, then that perception is really completely upside down. Okay, so and then the Buddha kept on saying is that these people are not free from lust for sensual pleasures, and they are devoured by craving for sensual pleasures. And they burn themselves with the fever of sensual pleasures. And they have, this is actually very important, they have faculties that are impaired. The faculty for judgment and also the faculty for feeling. The faculty of, also you can say analyzing, right? Examining. Right? And so these are all impaired. And thus, though sensual pleasures are actually painful to touch, they acquire a mistaken perception of them as pleasant. So because of this bias, because of this distorted view, we see sensual pleasures as pleasures, rather than seeing them as a fire, rather than seeing them as a charcoal pit, a really burning charcoal pit. Okay, so then it goes on to the third simile. He said, a leper with sores and blisters, cauterizing his body over a burning charcoal pit, the same. And then the more he scratches, and the more he cauterizes his body, the foul, the more evil smelling, more infected the openings of the wounds are. Can you imagine? Can you visualize these wounds? And yet, that's the bit is, yet he would find a certain measure of satisfaction and enjoyment in scratching the opening of his wounds. So, he said, they find such a pleasure, such a satisfaction in enjoyment of these scratching and cauterizing over these wounds because of these inverted, distorted views. And so the Buddha tell Magandhya is that people who are not free from lust for sensual pleasures, who are devoured by craving for sensual pleasures, who burn with the fever of sensual pleasures, still indulge in sensual pleasures. The more they indulge in sensual pleasures, the more their craving for sensual pleasures increases, and the more they are burned by the fever of sensual pleasures. Because these are all distorted views. And so the Buddha said there are a few distorted views that we have to be constantly remind ourselves with. The first is a distorted view impermanence as permanent. Okay? So, can you think of an example of impermanent as permanent? You can just turn on your audio and say something if you want. Anybody?
Our life.
Okay, Laurie and then Nora. Laurie first, yes.
Our life. We think our life.
Oh, yes, our life. Yeah. It's going to go on forever, right?
Right. We pretend that we're not going to die for as long as we can.
I wish you would share that next Saturday. Yes, Nora, what are you going to say?
That chocolate will always be good. More and more chocolate will bring us more and more pleasure, and then you realize, too much.
Chocolate are permanently good, right? Okay. Yes, Jeremy. Yes. Not when you have diabetes, though, Nora.
Yeah.
When you start to have diabetes, you start to see impermanent, right? Oh, there are diabetic chocolate too, right? Yeah. Okay, Jeremy, sorry.
A strong emotion or feeling.
Yeah, that's going to hang on forever, right? How can I get rid of this? It's staying there all the time, right?
How can I ever get through this? How can I deal with this? Or I think it happens often. And we get stuck on the idea that it will last forever.
Yeah. But it really doesn't. Once you start to actually observe it, moment to moment, you start to see that changing phenomenon in there, right? And once you start to see that changing phenomenon, you should have an aha moment. Ah, this is changing. This is not going to last. Don't worry, Jeremy. It will soon pass. Right? Yeah, good. All right. And then the second one is unsatisfactory as pleasurable and satisfactory. Any volunteers? Unsatisfactory as pleasurable. Okay, by phone, yeah.
Money, wealthy.
Oh, money, yeah, wealth, yeah, so pleasure, eh? Yeah, unsatisfactory. I don't have enough money, so go and look for more money, right? It's a pleasure to go and to find more money, but the other way around, or the other way around, yeah. Jeremy?
Being undiligent in our chores or the things we need to do.
Being
Undiligent, not
Not-
finishing what we start.
Oh, not finishing what you start. Okay, unsatisfactory as pleasurable and satisfactory. And do you like and you enjoy that? Not finishing what you have started?
It's impermanent, unstable, unsatisfactory.
Yeah, it's like when you've got that job you gotta finish and you 10 minutes before you're done, you sneak off because you're like, I'm gonna go relax instead of finishing up.
Ah, okay. All right. All right. Okay. Anybody else? Versha? Yes?
I think shopping.
Ah,
So I think we think if I just go out and buy and get more, but in fact it just creates that.
yeah. You call that hoarding, right? Hoarding? Yeah? Yeah, the teacher said yes. You're too slow. The teacher wins. The teachers win. Yes. Hoarding, yeah. Yeah, you buy more and more. You like me. I buy books. So pleasurable to look at books, right? But so many books I haven't finished. I don't think I can finish this lifetime. Same you, eh? Yeah, I know. But don't worry, I'll pass those inheritance on. Who wants some books? Buying books is actually pleasurable. It's not unsatisfactory. It's actually very satisfactory. But it's so impermanent. And I don't need all those books. I really don't need all those books. And but interesting. Not self as self. Oh, this is easy. Anybody can give me an example. All of you are so understand this part so well now. Nobody wants to volunteer an answer. This is a very difficult question. And not self as self. Versha.
I think the idea every time we say this is mine,
Yeah.
have a sense of something belonging to this person, and it doesn't.
Yeah. And also, Laurie, go back to you. This, my life will go on. My life is going to be permanent, right? My life. Yeah, my children. Right? My grandchildren. Yeah. And my baking. And my cookies. Yeah. And this is mine. And that is yours. I earned this. I make this. I deserve this. Oh, no. You depend on so many people to make something that you are able to earn, right? Yeah? As I said, I don't know, some time ago is, you get paid. Who pay you? Your boss pay you. Who pay your boss? All your clients pay your boss. Yeah? Right? So, who is the boss? The clients are your boss. And if you don't have the clients, you don't have a job. You don't have a job. And our job actually depends, it's conditioned. Right? All our jobs, everything is conditioned. Our existence is conditioned. The risotto that we had today was wonderful. And because of, we have Po Lam's tomatoes, right? And Po Lam's tomatoes from last year was still good. Because why? We have first-class soil here. And we have first-class farmer here. And we have first-class nuns here who cook them, who can them. And we have first-class seeds. Heirloom tomatoes, right? So it's all conditioned to make a delicious risotto. And if you cook the risotto and nobody is going to eat, then you won't enjoy it too. Then what's the first-class tomatoes used for? Nothing, right? So it's all conditioned. So no, not self as self. Don't mistaken that. Don't mistaken that. Always remind you on this, on yourself on this. And not beautiful as beautiful. Everybody is laughing in the Dharma hall. I don't know why they are laughing, but they never say anything. Oh, okay.
I remember, I think it's Goenkaji's discourses where he says, out of what hole comes something beautiful?
Oh, out of what holes come out is beautiful. The hair drop into your breakfast. What is beautiful? The night before you say that, oh, nice blonde hair, nice red hair, and now in your breakfast is the hair, is a filthy hair. So what is beautiful, right? Yeah, from your 10 days discourses, right? So what is beautiful? Shave off the skin and you see the blood and flesh. Is that beautiful? Right? Take off that mask of skin. What is beautiful underneath is flesh and blood and tendons and blood vessels and everything. What is beauty? Right? So not beautiful as beautiful. So don't mistaken anything not beautiful as beautiful and have this inverted, distorted views. That's what the Buddha said. But we always have all these distorted views, especially the first one, impermanent as permanent. That's the killer. That's the killer. Okay? So the Buddha said to him, what I have just read, people who are not free from lust for sensual pleasures, who are devoured by craving for sensual pleasures, who burn with the fever of sensual pleasures, still indulge in sensual pleasures. The more they indulge in sensual pleasures, the more their craving for sensual pleasures, the more they are burned by the fever of sensual pleasures. The more their craving for sensual pleasures increases, actually, on the other hand, you can say the more suffering actually is coming that way, right? And the more sufferings has come if one doesn't correct their distorted views, then they will create more sufferings. They will fall into their craving more. Just like an addict, right? An addict, whether it's alcohol, whether to substances, or whether to TV games or whatever, or pornography or whatever. when their craving is not fulfilled, and then they start to look for it, and then they indulge in that, and then that gives them the pleasure. And when they are off that, then the mind is keep on thinking about that. Oh, when do I get off work so that I could go and go into this searching of this sensual pleasures. So that at that time, that search for sensual pleasures is already a suffering itself. It really is not a pleasure. It's already a suffering itself. Okay, so the more they will be burned by this fever of sensual pleasures, and yet they find a certain measure of satisfaction and enjoyment, independence on these 5 sense doors. So from these few subchapters, we can see the danger of sensual pleasures. But yet, we are human beings. We are human beings. Our senses are necessary for us to exist as a healthy, capable a human being. So how can we balance that? That is a reflection of tonight. How can we balance that? In what path should we pursue in balancing these sense doors, using these sense doors as useful sense doors, or using these sense doors as a craving sense doors? How can we balance that? And what should we do to actually balance it? Any reflections? Jeremy?
By pursuing the Eightfold Noble Path and following the middle way, like the middle path.
Okay, you said it all. You said it all.
But
It is true. It is true. Yeah. But practically, realistically,
Being mindful.
yeah, very good. Also, and
Continuing your practice, working on your practice. Meditation.
meditation, yeah. And with meditation, you cultivate your mindfulness. With meditation, you develop your... Somebody say something?
Equanimity.
Yeah, equanimity. Okay, so don't bash yourself if you start craving for pizza or for Dairy Queen, not Dairy Queen, a Dairy Queen. Don't bash yourself. Go and enjoy a Dairy Queen, but don't go overboard of 3 Dairy Queens, 5 Dairy Queens, 6 Dairy Queens, or everyday Dairy Queen. Dairy Queen is going to kill me. but that is a lesson to really on our part to do is don't allow these sense organs to go haywire. Don't let it go loose too often, too much, for too long. Isn't it? Right? So that is the middle path, and with the mindfulness and equanimity, and hopefully our craving through the sense doors would be less and less when we get older and older. Or when we get more mature on this path of Dharma. Right? Okay? Do you like this story of leper? I hope you are. I hope you are as inspired as me by this metaphor, the leper. Yes.
Steve, I'm just thinking about your reflection question. Also, about the importance of environment. Oh, sorry.
The importance of environment, yeah.
Because in the story, that leper is very lucky that he has people around him that are bringing him
To
the
medicines,
medicine and the doctor. And we're
Yeah.
very lucky because we have you and Po Lam so close.
yes.
But there's many people that don't have that in their environments, and it's so much more difficult then to change direction.
Yes, yes, yes. Everett said that that leper in the story actually was very, very lucky because he had families, he had kinsmen, he has friends to bring him the doctor to cure him. And she said, you are very lucky because you have Po Lam, you have teachings here, so you're very lucky in a sense. But there are so many people who are less fortunate, who don't have that opportunity to encounter the words of the Buddha, to encounter a place to practice, or to even know that there is a place for practice. Yes, it's true. It's very true. But you see, you folks have this opportunity to practice. It's not just because of this lifetime. Remember, it's not because of this lifetime. You all have planted such a strong seed from way back then. And it's just that it so happened it's actually sprout right now. You never know that in the past life you probably have Dharma seeds sprouted already. You have practiced before. Otherwise, you won't stay here for so long. You have been here long enough. Laurie have been here long enough to see people and go. Mali and Tisa have been here long enough, 20 years with us. They have seen people come and go. And only a few of you stay behind because why? You are grounded. Your seeds are strong. But people don't have seeds, especially people in the North America. I shouldn't say that they don't have seeds. Their seeds might not have the opportunity to mature yet. That's why we are here to sow seeds, right? To sow seeds. In the past 26 years, I've been sowing seeds, really. And I tell you, maybe in another 2-3 generations, there will be a lot of practitioners in North America because they have taken seeds, right? Not just because of me, but so many Dharma masters have been sowing seeds in North America, in places where the Buddha's teachings were not there. You see, right? Yeah. Agree? Yes. Right? But let us make a vow all the time is may more and more people will encounter the words of the Buddha. That's why always at the end I would make a vow is that may more and more people, let us send this message out into the universe. So those people, maybe one day they will hear, oh, there is a center there, or there is a nunnery there, or there is a temple there. Oh, let us go and see what's going on, right? Yeah, okay?
Share something?
Yeah, sure, Mali.
Yes, I just wanted to share my reflections of the talk today.
Yes.
I found these suttas are really clever and hard-hitting, really powerful.
Yeah.
But towards the end, you mentioned to look for balance.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Look for balance in life. So
Yes.
that's the takeaway from me, to look for balance.
Ha ha ha. Good. Yes. Yes. We are not like the disciples of Buddha at the Buddha's time. They have been practicing eons and eons and eons. So they were able to have such a good fortune to be born in the era when the Buddha was there. And when they were able to hear the Buddha's teachings and they just attained enlightenment or went into Nibbana, but we still have a long way to go. So in order not to discourage ourselves too much, so we need to have this balance, right? And when we are balanced, we will be able to walk an extra mile. Otherwise, we'll be scared. We'll be like, oh no, it's just too difficult. I have friends who told me that, taking up the Buddha's teaching is really difficult. I'd rather go on to being a Catholic or a Christian because it's so easy. The God will take up all my mistakes. And in the Buddhist teachings, you have to be responsible for your own mistakes, and you have to correct yourself, you have to change yourself, you have to transform yourself. Too difficult. I don't want to do that. No, my friends actually told me like that. I said, it's okay. You go ahead. No problem. Because why? Sometimes people find it so difficult. So, if we don't encourage people to walk a middle path, not too lax, not too slacking, but not too overboard like the Buddha in the forest for 6 years, right? But really middle path, and make sure you feel comfortable, a little bit more than comfortable. Work harder than a little bit more. So every time you make a little bit more effort, that's how we improve. Okay? Great. Good. May these blessings extend to all, that we with all the other living beings together will attain the Buddha way. May we wish more and more people will encounter the words of the Buddha, study them, understand them, practice them, and liberate themselves from their own miseries and sufferings, and be truly, ultimately free and happy and peaceful. May you all be safe, secure, happy, and peaceful. Have a nice week.